Hi everyone, and welcome to Innovate Marketing Group's Zoom training. This video is part one of our two-part series to help you guys more with Zoom. In part one, we're going to be going over how to set up a Zoom webinar and also go over some awesome host controls. So right now I have set up the test webinar page. So here is how you create a webinar. So for topic, I chose my webinar test. Description is optional. I put in, this is a webinar test for Innovate Marketing Group's Zoom training. Here you will be able to put in the date of it, the time of your webinar, the duration, if it's an hour and 30 minutes, and also the time zone. Right here, this is an important part. For registration, go ahead and click required, because after the webinar is finished, you will be able to go into the register part of the Zoom webinar and pull what we call a register report. And this gives you a report on the performance, their Q&A, the questions that they had, and all the good stuff that you will need. Up next, webinar password. You don't necessarily need a webinar password, especially if you want your webinar broadcasted widely. Up next, for video, make sure for the host and panelist, you always click on for both. This gives the host and the panelist video options during your webinar, which you will need. Up next, we're going to go to audio. Audio is important to click both. If there does so happen to be a technical issue with a panelist video or computer audio during the actual webinar, it is a very, very quick fix for them to be able to hop on the telephone and call in. So we just make sure to click both for this audio option. Up next, for webinar options, we're going to click Q&A. This allows for the attendees to ask Q&A questions beforehand and during the webinar itself. Also, go ahead and click Enable Practice Session. Enabling Practice Session allows for there to be a waiting room for the host and the panelists before the actual webinar goes live. And when we go to the host controls, I will show you how to broadcast from out of the waiting room or practice session. Also, this is an awesome option, is to make the webinar on demand. This automatically records your webinar and provides a link for you to send to other attendees if they so happen were not able to catch your webinar when it was live. And then also recording the webinar automatically. If you want the webinar to record automatically, go ahead and click that. You can also save the recording onto your local computer or onto the Zoom cloud itself. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click schedule here. And there are more options down at the bottom. So after you create your webinar, there's options down here. So if we go to invitations and we go to invite panelists. So right now we have no panelists listed, but if you do have panelists for your webinar, which I'm sure you will, you're going to go to edit right here and then input their name and their email. And this is very, very important. Panelists for Zoom webinar each get a unique link. And when they select that link and when they go into the webinar or the practice session, their name will pop up. So make sure your panelists do not give attendees this link itself, because then attendees who are not a panelist, who are not talking or providing any education or information during the webinar itself, they will be able to be a panelist. So then you will have to go through your host controls and kind of kick them out back into the attendee pool. So that's that. So approval options. For our webinars, we always automatically approve all of our registers. But if that is not the case, if you want to manually choose who is able to view your webinar, you're just going to click edit and then click manually approve. And there's other options that you could play around with that you could custom make towards your needs or wants. Another awesome thing for registration is for your registration page, you are able to download information from your registers or attendees. So you can gather the last name, address, the city, zip code, anything you will possibly need for your marketing needs. You could also go in and create custom questions. For our webinars, we asked, would you like to be added to our newsletter? And so that's a quick way to get more marketing done out of the way before the webinar itself. And also, if they have any questions before the actual webinar itself, that's a great place to input those. Okay, so down here when you go to manage attendees after the webinar, this is where you're going to go to pull your attendee reports and your registration reports. There's also Q&A reports and poll reports that give you all the goodies on what actually happened during your live webinar. So if we go up, we go to email settings. Here you can adjust the email settings, whether you would like for Zoom to send a follow-up email to the attendees, no follow-up email to the attendees, a reminder email to the panelist, or not. Next, we're going to go to branding. Right here, if you have any image associated with your webinar, if you have a banner, go ahead and upload that here. Also, company logo, also speakers. You are able to post 3 speaker profile pictures up on Zoom that will go up on the registration site. And there's also other branding options available. Up next, we're going to go to polls. So polls is an awesome way to interact with your attendees during the actual live webinar. So we'll actually go ahead and create one right now. So if you go to polls and go to add, this window will pop up. And so what you're going to want to do is, if you have multiple polls during your webinar, I would number them so you're able to tell which one comes first. So we're going to go 1, favorite color. And so the question will be, what is your favorite color? And then you either have them only choose one choice, or if they want to choose multiple choices, that is also available. So let's put green, blue, and red. And you could also add multiple poll questions as well, and you would just go ahead and click add question. So you're going to save those. And then if you go back down, you will be able to see your poll question 1 favorite color right here. So for Q&A, this allows for the attendees to ask Q&A questions during your live webinar. So you could go ahead and click allow anonymous questions, or you could unclick that so that their name does pop up with their question. And also allow attendees to view answered questions only or all questions. Up next is an important thing, is live streaming. Zoom actually has the capability of connecting to Facebook Live, YouTube, or Facebook Workplace. So this is actually something that we'll have to go through during the actual Zoom app itself. It is not a preset option, but they do have it listed right here. So we have our webinar all set and ready to go. So I'm going to stop sharing right here. And I actually have a second camera set up right now. I currently have the panelist, which is my other camera, on hold. So what you're going to do, if you want to take panelist off of hold, you're going to go to participants down here in the host controls. And then this little window will pop up on the side. And you see this person, one person is on hold. So I'm going to go ahead and take off hold. And it will have the other panelist join. Say hi. Okay, so now we're going to go into some awesome host controls. So for participants, here, when you click on participants, this window, again, it pops up on the side, and you're able to see the panelists, but if you go over, you will also be able to see the attendees within your webinar. You will be able to see their name, you'll be able to bump them up to a panelist if you would like to view their video and have them participate within the webinar itself. Or if you accidentally, if a panelist link does get sent out to a regular attendee and they pop up here, you will be able to go to the panelists right here, click more, and you will be able to click remove. And this removes them from the panelist view, so their video will no longer be there and they will no longer be able to share audio. Okay, so other awesome capabilities is if I go over to this panelist right here, and if I click the 3, I will be able to stop the video. So this stops the video itself. To start the video again, you will have to click Ask to Start Video. So once you do that, a little window pops up on the panelist end, and it says the host has asked you to start your video. So they just go ahead and click start my video, and then they pop back up. So more options. You can chat with them specifically. You can rename them as well. You could spotlight or pin their video. We recommend to keep it at a gallery view, just so for the attendees, they aren't focusing on one speaker at a time. You can also make them the host. If for any reason you need to leave as the host, you can assign the host capabilities to any other panelist. You could forbid them from recording the webinar. You can remove, and again, you could put them on hold. So these are really, really awesome. Over here, if you click the 3 buttons on the side of the participant window, right here, you can mute all panelists upon entry. If you do have an MC, we don't recommend that. We recommend you going through the other speakers who are not introducing the webinar and muting them manually. So you can allow the panelists to unmute themselves, allow panelists to remain themselves. If you want to play a little chime when someone comes into the webinar, you can do that as well. Locking the webinar is an awesome security measure, but just make sure if you do lock the webinar, that you are aware that no other attendees will be able to get into the webinar once you do lock it. So if anybody's a little bit late, so they're running behind schedule, and you do lock the meeting, they will not be able to attend your webinar. And also allow panelists to start video. Allow attendees to raise their hand. If an attendee does raise their hand, you will be able to go to attendees right here, and a little hand will pop up on the side. This usually means they have a question or they kind of want to get involved with the webinar. So if you go back down to here, view participant count, view host mode, active speaker view, and gallery view. So these are all video layouts that the attendees will see on the attendee side. We always recommend, again, to use gallery view, as this allows to see all the speakers at once. Okay, so to close the participants window, you just go here and click close. So up next, we're going to go to Q&A. So this is the section where you will be able to see all the attendees' questions. So the open questions will come up here, and this means that they were not answered or they were not dismissed. So you will see all the attendees' questions pop up right here. And it's always great in the beginning of the webinar to say to the attendees, if you have any questions during the webinar, please use the Q&A chat box. Up next, we have polls. And so this poll, you will be able to see, we actually have our poll that we set up earlier. So to launch the poll, you just click launch, and I'm going to allow panelists to vote as well. So if you launch the poll, I'm going to go over to my other camera right here. I'm going to say my favorite color is blue. I'm going to submit it, and you will be able to see the attendee and panelist answers on your end. And then once you're done with the poll, you just click end polling. And if you would like to share the results with the attendees and the panelists, you just click share results, and the window of the results of the poll do show up on their screens. Okay, so on to chat. So chat is a great way to connect with the panelists without causing too much of a ruckus. So if you only want to have a message sent to the panelist, make sure to send it to all panelists, or you can send it to all panelists and attendees. This make sure that you are sending a message that you would like your attendees to see as well. And again, to close this window, you're just going to go here and click close. Okay, for sharing your screen, this mode pops up right here. And this is really, really great. It also has a whiteboard, which a lot of people don't know about, so you're able to draw. It's really, really cool. You're also able to mirror your iPhone or your iPad, which is also really, really handy if you do have something on your phone that you do need to show. And here are all of your windows that you do have set up already. So before the webinar goes live, we always recommend to have all of your PowerPoints, all of your presentations, anything you will be sharing during the webinar up already so that you have easy access to sharing. So that during the live webinar, you aren't looking through your computer, trying to figure out where you put your presentation. There's also advanced options as well. If you have content from a second camera that you would like to connect into, that's there as well. Music or computer sound only. If you only want to share like a song or audio from a video, this is where you will go. And if you only want to share a portion of your screen, that is where you will go as well. Okay, and also with sharing your screen, as the host, you have advanced sharing options. So who can share? Only the host or all panelists? This will allow the panelists to override your sharing. So we recommend that only the host has access to sharing, unless you do correlate that between the panelists beforehand. And if you do have all panelists being able to share, who can start sharing when someone else is sharing? I would only click the host. This should always be on for the host. We always recommend that the host and the panelists that are talking have up the necessary presentations or documents that are going to be shared. This way, if there's any technical difficulties on one person's side, everyone else has the ability to override a person's share and then pop up the PowerPoint that is not having the technical difficulty. Okay. This is the record button. So this again records either to the cloud that is accessed through Zoom or onto your local computer. And here as well, we have the live streaming options. So over here, you're going to click more and go to live on Facebook, and this will automatically open Facebook up. We recommend that you are already signed into Facebook and that before the webinar goes live, you have the live stream all set up and ready to go, meaning you have the title of the webinar, the description of the webinar, and you have it all set to click live once you click broadcast on Zoom. Same with Live Workplace by Facebook and live on YouTube. You want to make sure you have all your platforms up and ready to go so that there's no lag time between when you go broadcast live on Zoom to when you go live on the live streaming platform. So now we're going to go to testing your audio. So audio is a huge thing during Zoom webinars, along with lighting and positioning of the camera. And you even need to check the audio in the microphone, even if you are using a professional microphone. So Zoom has this awesome feature in and of itself. So you're going to click this arrow above the mute button, this little microphone right here. And then you're going to go to test speaker and microphone. So if you hear the ringtone, you're going to go ahead and click yes. If you don't, go ahead and click no. And then speak and pause. And then speak and pause. And so you should hear a replay. And so that means that your speaker and your microphone looks good. If you aren't hearing the ringtone or if you're not hearing the replay, go ahead and click no, and Zoom itself will run a diagnostic on what microphone or audio is not working. Other features that are really awesome, if you don't have a nice and tidy background, you can go to this video camera right here and go to the camera, go to choose virtual background. This allows you to choose a virtual background. It's its own built-in green screen as well, which is really awesome. Go ahead and click out of that. And then there's also advanced video settings. So if you go here, you'll be able to go through mirroring your video, touch up my appearance, which kind of blurs imperfections, other branded things as well. Again, audio, share screening, virtual background, recording, statistics, feedback, keyboard shortcuts, and accessibility. So these are all the great host capabilities that Zoom does have. And once you're ready to go live on your webinar, you will click this button right here. And again, when we went through and we set up the webinar itself, we went ahead and we clicked enable practice mode. This is what this is right now. We're in a waiting room, essentially. So when I click broadcast, we are now live. And attendees will come into the webinar itself and they will be able to see us and hear us and interact with us. I hope that helps. Thank you for attending Innovate Marketing Group's Zoom training part 1. In part 2, I will be going over IMG's top Zoom tips. Thank you again.